Hi, I'm 13 News Now meteorologist Craig Moeller with an update on the tropics and something that is going to be a big problem for the United States, specifically Florida and the Gulf Coast of Florida. As we go over the next several days, we have the development and the approach of Hurricane Milton. We're going to talk about that. Take a look at our list of tropical names for the Atlantic hurricane season. We can go ahead and take this graphic full so you can get a good look at them. You can see there was Alberto, and at first with Alberto, we had this, system that was out there early season. Beryl ramped up to a Category 5. Incredibly strong early season. You get to the B storm, and sometimes, you can have some more impressive storms, but to go Cat 5 with Beryl being the second named storm of the season. Then there was Chris and Debbie. We came through Ernesto and Francine, Gordon, and then, of course, Helene. Helene, our second major hurricane, a Category 4. There was then Isaac and Joyce. We had Kirk, which was just a fish storm. Kirk's still out there as a Cat 1 system right now. We'll talk more about that as we go along. There's Leslie, which has had a hard time getting its act together. But Milton now joins Kirk, Helene, and Beryl as our fourth major hurricane of the 2024 Atlantic season. And we're going to talk about that. We can show you the satellite and the radar images. This system, when I came in to do the morning show, 13 News Now Daybreak at 13 News Now in Norfolk, Virginia, I was taking a look at this. It was a Category 2 hurricane, 5 o'clock update. It was gaining strength. The forecast hasn't changed a lot with the intensity. It was forecast to become a major hurricane. But we got an update at 7:05. The normal scheduled update would have been at 8 o'clock, but we got a 7:05 update. Said, okay, this thing is now a Category 3 hurricane. So it jumped up. They found some of the winds strong enough to support that Category 3 status. So they went ahead and said, okay, Category 3. That was at 7 o'clock. We got the 8 o'clock update. A little bit stronger. Those winds were up around 125 miles per hour. So continued to watch it, and we got another update at 9 o'clock saying this thing is now a Category 4 hurricane. So in just the span of a few hours, it went from a Cat 2 to a Cat 4. And again, as hurricane hunters continue to investigate this, the National Hurricane Center keeps a close eye to it. This is where we are at 9:05, the latest update. We'll be getting another one in at 11. In fact, I'm hoping to be with you right here when that comes in. We'll see. We'll get that 11 o'clock update together. But right now, the latest one in from the Hurricane Center, the 9:05 advisory, maximum winds 150 miles per hour. You think about that. That's 1 minute average wind, 150 miles per hour at some point within that gust to 155 miles per hour. Now, you can see it's getting very close to the Yucatan Peninsula, and as it's moving along east-southeast, 8 miles per hour, kind of drifting a little closer to the edge of the Yucatan. There's a lot of kind of national park and some wildlife refuge there along that northern area, but folks along some of those coastal towns will be watching that very carefully. Obviously, folks in Cancun keeping an eye to it as well. As we take a look at it, the central pressure now is 940 millibars. This thing is very, very strong. Forecast to gain a little more intensity over the next, say, 12 to 18 hours. Could see it up around 155 miles per hour or so. Those maximum winds, we're getting really, really close to the threshold of another Category 5. Don't know if we'll make it, but we're going to keep a close eye to it. We'll let you know if it does become a Cat 5. At any rate, it comes very close to that northern coastline there along the Yucatan and Mexico, and then it starts to turn more to the northeast. As it moves along, it may encounter a little bit of disruptive shear. Okay, it's possible the winds may weaken it a little bit, but as it makes its run towards Tampa, there's a very good chance this thing is going to come in as a very strong hurricane, likely a Cat 3, possibly a Cat 4, maybe a little bit weaker if it does encounter more of that shear and gets a little bit disrupted. But right now, folks along the Florida Gulf Coast need to be prepared for another major hurricane. You think about Helene, came in up around the Big Bend. This one's going to be, in all likelihood, well south of that, closer to Tampa Bay. but another major hurricane hit likely for Florida based on how we see it. Now you look at the map here and you see that 1 down to a category 1. That's going to be by Thursday morning, 2 a.m. with the projected forecast time and location there. It will weaken as it continues to move over land. We see that happening a lot. Then you look back out over in the Atlantic and you go, okay, well, Friday morning, it's just kind of a remnant low or maybe a hybrid system. I'm going to talk to you about a frontal boundary, which is coming through Hampton Roads in the mid-Atlantic region right now. That is going to settle down to the south and kind of set up a buffer here. It's possible that this thing may kind of interact with that trough, maybe become just an extratropical low or kind of get absorbed into that as it moves away. At any rate, right now, all the models do carry this off. None of them run it back up through the southeast coastline or up towards the mid-Atlantic region. So it does look like Florida is going to bear the impact from this, and then it should continue to move off. Now, we have tropical storm watches up around the Big Bend. You can see that area that was hit so hard by Helene. They're thinking, are you kidding me? Another system? Just tropical storm watch at this point. And southern portions of Florida, South Florida, and back towards Lake Okeechobee, we've got, again, tropical storm watches. But this area shaded in red, the central part of the Florida Gulf Coast, from Cedar Key down through Naples, that whole area, including Tampa, St. Pete, all of these areas needing to be prepared. Hurricane watch there, should flip to a warning tomorrow at some point, maybe even late tonight, depending on how this thing moves along. But those areas under watch right now, we'll see warnings come up as the system is set to move along. Now we're taking a look at the watches and warnings. I want to show you a couple of the models and how the models take this thing along. And again, this is just model projections. This is the European. We'll start with that. And as we bring it along, you can see again, it moves just north of the Yucatan. This is the same path I was just talking about. Very strong system, brings it along a little bit more towards the kind of a southerly part of that track. It's a little farther south than the GFS on its approach. And as we take a look here, here's Tampa right here, and you can see farther to the south. Here's the center with the European model. It then brings it and kind of cuts it up just to south of the Tampa Bay area where the bay opens up. So this is obviously a direct hit, tremendous amount of rain. The surge that would come with this, with that wind coming up from the south ahead of it and then coming into the bay, could be really, really tremendous. We'll have to see. On this track, again, some of the worst of it might be a little farther south, heavy rain, high tornado threat as well. This is with the Euro, and this actually brings that center in Wednesday evening. This is a little faster than some of the other models with its solution here. They then bring it across the Florida Peninsula, back out over the Atlantic, and they carry it off to the east-northeast. You see how it moves away. Again, misses the mid-Atlantic region down to the south, but it carries all of that off to the east. That's the European model. Let's take a look at the GFS. This is the American model. And what's interesting with this, the GFS model and the Euro, they're both global models. And at times over the last 5 years, 10 years or longer, as we've been watching, sometimes the Euro's a little bit better, sometimes the GFS. For a while, the Euro was really, really good, and the GFS seemed to be lagging a little bit. Well, the United States has put a lot of effort, some resources, a lot of research into improving this model. And I got to tell you, the GFS, the global forecast system, which is the American model, has really, really done a very good job with some of these systems this year. It seems like it's been outperforming the Euro more recently. So we'll take a look at the American model here, the GFS, and how it moves along. Again, bringing that intense and this rapidly developing system just north of the Yucatan. And again, really a powerful system moving along and now making that run. Look at how it really ramps up here. We could see Cat 5 system. It's possible. Hurricane Center's got it right at a strong 4, kind of bringing it along, possibly intensifying it a bit more. And look at how it ramps it up and then brings this to where the GFS brings it very close to maybe just north of Tampa. Okay. On that trajectory, that puts that right front side right into the mouth of Tampa. So we're looking at this again, these inlets, these little barrier islands, these little areas that open to the Gulf like that. Think about the storm surge, the winds pushing all this water up. Life-threatening storm surge. It is nothing to play with here. Tremendous amount of wind. You can see it's tracking in a little bit. And I'll just point out to you as we take a look here, notice just below the banner on your screen how those arrows are pushing south. Keep in mind there is a frontal boundary that is positioned across the southeast U.S. Okay, it's right here. You can see the winds howling around that hurricane. And now we've got these winds off to the north pushing south. That's like a blocker just saying, no, you're not coming up this way. It's pushing it down. So we're going to watch for this. Again, really hard hit. Tampa, areas just north of that, up towards Cedar Key, those areas, really rough hit here. Okay, so it tracks along, and you can see, okay, now it's starting to really find the resistance with that frontal boundary here, and this too kicks it off to the east. Doesn't bring it up through the mid-Atlantic, takes its energy and pushes it off to the east. So both of the global models here that I've just shown you, the Euro and the GFS, both have a very similar solution as far as the general thinking. Comes across Florida, really hits Florida hard, and then ejects it off to the east. Very confident that this is what we're looking at. We'll take a look at a couple of other models, okay? This is the wind field forecast, and this is based on the graph model. And you can see the general thinking here for kind of the path of this system, and you've got the various hurricane force winds, cats 1, 2, and 3 right there. Tropical storm force winds kind of out to the areas shaded in blue. And of course, if this thing continues with Category 4 or possibly a bit stronger, you could even see some slightly higher embedded areas. But this is the general wind field based on the graph model. And you can see how it makes this run. This is Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock, Fort Myers, Sarasota. Still not too bad. Not really feeling much from it just yet, but it is getting closer. So as we take a little closer look, now we're getting into the afternoon, some of those tropical storm force gusts starting to reach the Florida coast, and then it really comes in Wednesday evening. Now this model is a slower solution. Remember, I showed you the Euro. The Euro had this thing right here, okay, coming in around 9 o'clock. This is the graph model, and it's got the wind field kind of pulling back. Doesn't really come in until later Wednesday night or even early Thursday. These are all just models, and we're still a couple days out. So there'll be some time to kind of refine the forecast and really pin down the exact timing. But the bottom line is I showed you all those areas under hurricane watch. They need to be prepared. Residents down in Florida need to be prepared for hurricane conditions down along the Florida Gulf Coast. Very likely that they're going to get hit. Now, again, here's a spaghetti plot. We won't just show you some of the global models. We'll show you all the models of Hurricane Center, or a lot of them that they run. And you can see the packing here. Again, the majority of them bring it into the central Florida coast on the Gulf side, move it across Florida, probably close to, but a little south of Orlando. Still, people down in Orlando need to be prepared to deal with all kinds of issues, from heavy rain to possible tornadoes and just destructive winds. I mean, this thing coming in potentially as a major hurricane, it will weaken over land, but even as it crosses through Florida, it's still going to produce hurricane force winds and gusts. So potential damage that way. Likely that center track just a little south of Jacksonville, but again, close enough to deliver a pretty good blow. Now they're going to be on the friendlier side of the system. The worst of it, on that right front side as it's moving along, probably a little bit farther south. But all of Central Florida really needs to be mindful that this is going to be a potentially powerful and destructive storm as it crosses over Florida. And again, you see how all the models carry it off to the east. None of them run it up the coast towards the mid-Atlantic. So we're very confident that it is going to cut through and continue to move off. Remember, that frontal boundary is out there as a blocking barrier. So what are we looking at? Well, major storm surge along the Florida Gulf Coast. That is for certain, as this thing is going to push a lot of water as a major hurricane. Tremendous sea state out there as well. I was looking at some of the wave height forecasts, and we were talking maybe 30 to 35 feet or so in the Gulf. So a lot of wave activity. You think about some of the oil operations and some of the rigs there throughout the Gulf. It's going to be another rough go. That may have some impact on gasoline prices. We'll be watching for that. Talking about strong winds, obviously, as well. If we do still have this as a major hurricane, you could see some winds, certainly gusts over 100 across Florida, but we could see some sustained winds up there as well. And there is a high tornado risk, obviously, as this thing moves across land. We always have that threat, but with a system this powerful coming through, it's almost a certainty that we will deal with tornadoes down across Florida. All right, another look again at the tropical satellite showing you how Milton's moving along. Again, South Florida, seeing some rain from it, maybe a little bit of wind. It will be Central Florida that gets hit the hardest based on the current projections. There are a couple other systems that are named right now. We have Leslie and Kirk. Now, Leslie is going to follow a path very similar to Kirk. At one point, Kirk was a Category 4 hurricane. It is now down to just a, well, it looks like with the new update there coming in a little early for Kirk, it is now a remnant low. We'll check that for you here in just a moment. The 11 o'clock, it looks like Leslie is still a Cat 1 and Milton at a Cat 4. So it's interesting, if I can come back out on camera, we get automated updates from the National Hurricane Center, and they're automatically plotting. This was a Category 1 hurricane, now down to an area of low pressure. And if you look at the satellite images there, it looks less tropical. You can see it almost looks like a comma, kind of indicating that it's probably starting to get some fronts around it, and it's at least a hybrid, if not extra tropical at this point. So Kirk is certainly weakened, but as Kirk came by our area, you know, it was helping increase the swell, and the fact that along the mid-Atlantic down through the Outer Banks, we've had a high threat of rip current, so kind of interesting to share that. Also, this area down here has a 30% chance of development. So here's the 11 o'clock update, again, automatically in here from the National Hurricane Center. You can see the winds. Well, it's saying still at 75 miles per hour, but they're calling it a post-tropical storm now as it's starting to take on some of those characteristics. So I would certainly say with hurricane force winds, potentially still somewhere along, it's just no longer truly tropical in its structure. So they're calling it a post-tropical storm. Kirk moving along. It will be a weather maker, as right now the projected path carries it with still some wind by Wednesday morning, maybe 50-mile-per-hour maximum winds towards France. So we'll continue to watch that. Could see some of that around Portugal or Spain potentially with a front kind of coming through, maybe some squally weather there as well. So that's what's happening with Kirk. We'll go ahead and show you the latest, the 11 a.m. update now for Leslie. Coming in, moving along still northwest at 13 miles per hour. And you can see expected to gain a little more intensity, maybe over the next couple of hours, and then weaken tomorrow back down to a tropical storm. Kind of hover there for a little bit on Thursday. By Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, it starts to weaken a bit and should be a remnant low as we get into the upcoming weekend, making a turn. And if I can come back out on camera just to make it easier for you to see, here's Bermuda. So again, Leslie, no impact on us. This is a fish storm, and it is going to turn to the north as a weakened system. So not worried about Leslie at all. All right, the 9:05 update. So we have not gotten the update on Milton just yet. It is going to come in at any moment. So I'm going to show you the 9 o'clock update. We're going to stay on with you live here because I do want to get that 11 a.m. advisory. It looks like it just came in. All right, let's take a look now. I'm going to go ahead and punch forward and then come back to it real quick here. All right, here's the 11 o'clock. And again, it just came in. Brand new advisory. So now the wind's 155 miles per hour. It is on the cusp. All right, still technically Category 4. Gust to 190 miles per hour, okay? Think about that. That's incredible, okay? 10 meters, all right, you get a gust, 190 miles per hour. Movement still east-southeast at 9 miles per hour. So again, these areas, these small communities right along the Yucatan, they're going to get hit. Again, it looks like it's a fairly compact area with a super intense wind field, but they're still going to get a brush here as it moves along. All right, the movement right now, east-southeast at 9, about 720 miles southwest of Tampa. That's the current location. Let's watch as this moves along. Again, that forecast track. And you can see they do have it going to a Cat 5 now. So that is a change from the previous forecast from the Hurricane Center now, and it makes sense. I mean, this thing is practically there right now, and it's continued to strengthen with each update. So the new update shows by 8 a.m. Tuesday with a position just north Cancun, very close to this, but just down to the south a little bit, a Category 5 hurricane. Okay, coming up along. And then as it encounters a little more of this wind shear, it may weaken just a little bit, but we're still talking about a major hurricane coming in to very close to Tampa, give or take, maybe just south, maybe a little bit north. We'll have to see exactly how it plays out. But the model's in very good agreement bringing this major hurricane back up across Florida. At this point, this new update at 8 a.m. shows it as a hurricane getting back over the waters. You have that frontal boundary, remember that. That's going to interact with it. It'll pick it up, kind of carry it along. So as it moves it offshore, again, eventually it should weaken or become extratropical, maybe post-tropical, as we saw with Kirk. But this is going to be big trouble for the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Tremendous wave action for western Cuba, for the Florida Keys. The swell activity and all of the energy from this will be tremendous, kind of propagating out. And then the push of storm surge into the Florida coast. I'm thinking between Tampa and Naples. Again, just a tremendous amount of wave action and energy being brought in, and storm surge up towards Tampa and St. Pete, those areas. Farther north, inland areas, it will weaken over land, but it's going to bring all those other things we talk about. Heavy rain. It is a quick mover in that it is going to keep progressing. The ones that really create the tremendous amounts of flooding are the slow-moving systems. Ones that move quickly don't produce as much. You could still see over a foot of rain in some areas, enough to produce some flooding, but it's not like this is stalling out and pivoting and going somewhere or doing something like that. It will keep moving. So I think the storm surge is going to be a really, really major concern for the Florida Gulf Coast. I think the wind field is going to be tremendous, and I think that there's going to be a very high potential for numerous tornadoes as this crosses Florida and then moves along. All right, that's the 11 o'clock update. We've been waiting for that. And again, I'm just going to show you one other quick thing here, as we've been talking a lot about the weather here in the mid-Atlantic. There's a reason, again, that this is going to stay down to the south. So I'm going to switch up the map here and take you to the mid-Atlantic region, and you can see some clouds here kind of moving along. There is a frontal boundary which is progressing across the area. And when we take a look at the winds here, you'll notice the winds diving in from the north and the northwest here, and we've got southwest winds. It's been one of those mornings where we've had a warm southwest wind across the area this morning, but we know that wind shift's coming. And again, the front is going to push down. This high pressure is going to slide off to the east, and this front is going to be the barrier that keeps the mid-Atlantic and much of the southeast in better shape, with Milton down, kind of pushed down towards Florida. So that's what's happening. Again, across the Hampton Roads area, southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina, you can see with the winds shifting around, cooler air comes in. So generally, higher pressure will keep things looking pretty good for the mid-Atlantic, but it's going to be the folks down in Florida that are dealing with Milton, with this Category 4, soon to be a Category 5 hurricane, as it strengthens a bit over the next 24 hours and then makes a run as a major hurricane towards the coast of Tampa. All right, this is a look at the latest from the Hurricane Center. We will continue to keep you updated at 13 News Now. All right, if you have us right now, if you're finding us on our Plus app, that's a great way to get frequent updates. You can also follow us with YouTube, however you're finding us digitally right now. Keep checking back, because our entire team will keep you updated as we continue to track the very latest on the tropics. A serious situation down in Florida. We will work hard to keep you updated. For now, that's the latest. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller.